I'm Stan Stalnaker, and we're at the Hub Culture Davos Pavilion, really looking at the idea of resilient dynamism, the theme of this year's World Economic Forum annual meeting. Joining me right now is Jamie McAuliffe from Education for Employment, a Washington, D.C. based group that is doing a lot in the Middle East and North Africa around education and employment, right?
As the name says it very simply, that's right.
Does what it says
exactly.
on the tin.
Education for employment. The opposite would be education for unemployment, which unfortunately is the the result in many of the countries we operate. Yes, EFE is a network of organizations focusing on providing jobs for young people in the Middle East and North Africa. As you may know, many of the countries in the Middle East and North Africa have very high rates of youth unemployment and also a very young population. So it's imperative that we provide pathways for young people to get into the world of work from high school and university. And unfortunately, many young people are graduating with degrees, but not with skills that the businesses that could hire them need. And
So we're talking about educated youth in emerging markets.
That's right.
Who have maybe a gap between being able to get placed into sort of what you might call the modern global economy.
Exactly. And we've tried to build a model that bridges that gap between the education systems and the world of work. We do it very simply. We partner with businesses that identify the skill needs for entry-level employees, and then we train young people up in those specific skills and then support them in their first jobs.
So what kind of skills and what kind of companies are you seeing the most demand around for this?
Well, in most of our countries, hospitality, construction, banking are some of the industries that are looking for talented hires but can't find them. So we're placing a lot of people into entry-level, I guess you'd call them white-collar jobs. In other countries like Yemen and Jordan, we've done some vocational training because there's also a need for just trade skills. Young people haven't built just basic trade skills that could give them a means to self-employment. So we try to adapt depending on the country and market needs. But the key element is always that demand-driven nature of the model. We're not just training for the sake of training, we're training connected to a real opportunity so that the young person can get on with their life and support themselves, and often they're supporting other family members, so it's a way to bring the family into the economy as well.
So is the focus very much upon youth, and how do you guys find and find the talent, and do they run through a specific program to kind of get them ready for this sort of
That's right.
opportunity?
We try to keep the programs between 1 and 3 months. We can't go much longer. These are young people who've graduated from school. They've been looking for a job on their own for 6 months or more, and they don't have the skills, and often they don't have the access. That's the other thing we're providing. We're providing access, the connections, exactly. In the Middle East and North Africa, they call it WASTA. We're working with low-income young people who come from communities that don't necessarily have the connections to the business sector. So we're creating that path for them as well. And we recruit through universities, other nonprofits that work with low-income, vulnerable youth populations, and we also try to make sure we're matching specific youth to businesses depending on the competency needs. So we're being very targeted in our recruitment, and that's the proposition of businesses: is we're getting talented young people into your business, and we're actually saving you time and money by handling the recruitment through the placement, and also reducing your turnover if they're successful.
So what are some case studies or some examples of how this kind of works in practice? Because you said that you're working with thousands of young people across these regions, and I'm sure a number of big companies. Any sort of things stand out about how this is maybe changing lives or really improving?
Yes, one of the things we hear a lot from our business partners is that you hire for hard skills, the more technical skills, but you fire for soft skills. So we focus a lot on just basic work skills. A lot of our young people have gone through school, never been exposed to the world of work. There's not much of a culture of internships in the Middle East and North Africa or summer jobs. So we're just trying to give them those basic skills to be effective in a business environment. How to present themselves, how to be confident. One of the basic things we're trying to do is give people confidence. And I wanted to bring this back to the theme of this conference because the theme of resilience is so important when we're working with vulnerable young people. And as many people know now, the issue of youth unemployment is a global crisis. I mean, we have some estimates say that unemployed and underemployed youth represent close to 300 million people across the globe. And young people are giving up hope, and they're despairing that they'll ever find that first job or that means to start up a business or become productive citizens. And we've got to give them that hope. And the theme of resilience is so important. The young people we work with are so resilient in just keeping at it, persevering through the job search, and then if they work with us, getting through the training, working with the first job placement, the first employer. And that's very important to continue to foster that positive resilience and hope and optimism.
So we hear a lot about this this idea of a talent gap, where there's a lot of people who need work,
Right.
and there's this constant sort of refrain from the business community that the skills that they need aren't necessarily available. So you have
Right.
huge demand and shortages in one area of the economy, and then you have the huge surpluses in other areas.
Right.
How does entrepreneurship fit into that? Do you see a plan, or are you guys working with these
Yes.
governments and companies on a plan to be able to help people empower themselves?
Absolutely. I mean, as you point out, I mean, the job matching, the skills gap is one part of the equation. The other important pillar is entrepreneurship and job creation. And we're also doing job creation entrepreneurship programs. And there we're trying to make sure we're identifying young people that have some of the basic skills and motivation to be a successful micro-entrepreneur or get a small business started up, and then taking them through a training program. We're able to rely on a lot of corporate partners for the content of our curricula. So Intel, for example, is providing the training curricula that we're using for our entrepreneurship program. And there we're doing the training, and then we're connecting them to resources, whether it's financing, microcredit, incubation, mentoring. So we're not trying to recreate the whole ecosystem for entrepreneurs, but connect them to resources that then will help them as they get their business started up. So absolutely, job creation is part of the equation, something we're trying to add in the mix of our programming, and at other important organizations, Junior Achievement and others are focusing specifically on entrepreneurship. And an important aspect of entrepreneurship is also fostering that entrepreneurship mentality, that mindset early on. So there's great efforts underway in the region now that I hope will pick up, getting entrepreneurship curricula into the high schools at a younger age so that young people are exposed to creative problem solving, to really hands-on practical experience when they're still in high school before they graduate and go on to look for their first opportunity.
So, last question. As an organization, you're here in Davos, and I'm sure that you guys have objectives and you want to get something out of your time and efforts here. What does the organization need the most right now?
What we need the most, it's two things, and they're equally important. One is just business partners. So we're constantly looking for new businesses to partner with in the region who are trying to support young people and provide that first entry into the workforce. So expanding our employer base, and we work with small, medium, large, and multinational companies across the region. So we're trying to build that partnership network. So that's one important aspect of our work, and one of the goals here is to connect to new businesses that care about this issue in the region and are hiring young people in the Middle East and North Africa.
And looking for talent.
The other is obviously funding. As an organization, we feel like we've got a model that's working for thousands, but we have great ambitions to grow to serve tens of thousands of young people, and we need the capital to invest in our organizational structure so that we can grow to the next level.
Of course.
And then the last thing I'll say is that I'm also privileged to be here as chair of the Global Agenda Council for the World Economic Forum on youth unemployment. So I'm also here with a group of people that's just trying to raise awareness to the business and government leaders about the issue of youth unemployment. I think there's general awareness that we have a crisis in youth unemployment.
Ariana Huffington was in talking about this exact subject 2 years ago.
Exactly. So I think there's a lot of awareness that's been raised. There are a lot of good reports that have identified the problem. We also have solutions. EFE is one, but there are many others that we've got to really get behind and scale up if we're going to make a dent in this problem. So I'm also here with a message of let's move from the raising awareness to problem solving and getting solutions out there at a much broader scale. So kind of really trying to convince leaders that this should be a priority on any policy agenda of a corporate or government leader.
Right, great. Thank you so much, Jamie. This is Jamie McAuliffe from the Education for Employment Group out of Washington. I'm Stan Stalnaker for Hub Culture here at the Davos Pavilion. Thanks very much.